Amigos. Pay careful attention.
The woman you are about to see is Andrea Johnson, one of South Africa's top prosecutors. She works for the National Prosecuting Authority, NPA, and leads a special team called the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, IDAC. Their job is to go after big corruption cases, like when politicians or government officials steal money through dodgy contracts. She got this job in February 2022, and she's known for being tough and careful. Recently, people wanted her to name the politicians involved in a police tender scandal, but she refused, saying she won't name anyone without solid proof. She also said she never talks about her cases with her husband, who works in crime intelligence, because pillow talk gets people killed. In short, she's the woman leading South Africa's biggest fight against corruption, trying to clean up the system without playing politics.
Every corrupt politician in the committee listens when she speaks. She is their worst nightmare. And with her, nothing gets left behind. They tried to question her credentials. Little did they know she's as qualified as it gets. She's onto them.
Thank you, Chair. I do, in terms of the academic qualifications, hold a Iuris degree and an LLB degree. I would hope that no one wants to know when I got those. They are extremely old. But in 2007, I also attempted and completed in that year a diploma in criminal justice and forensic auditing at the University of Johannesburg. It was part-time. I have various short courses that you complete during the course and scope of your employment, from project management, coaching and mentoring, money laundering, corruption, all of the relevant courses to enable you to do your work, Chair. I started prosecuting on the 1st of June, 1996, at the Magistrate's Court in Alberton. I was then moved to the Regional Court in Germiston, early in 1998. But in the Magistrate's Court, we did the usual matters that are still done, from assault. Unfortunately, back in the day, I also had to do traffic matters. I also had to deal with maintenance issues, and got in between spouses and or partners about whose rights it were to pay for the upkeep of their children. But it was as basic as that. I was in the regional court for a very short time, where more serious offenses from cash in transit heists, business robberies, murders, and so on were done. And on the 1st of June 1998, Chair, I started as a state advocate at the then Attorney General's office in Johannesburg under then Attorney General De Vries. The National Prosecuting Authority came into being in 1998. And in December of 1999, I was then promoted to Senior State Advocate and joined the Directorate of Special Operations, colloquially called the Scorpions. I was there till the doors closed.
Who was the head of the Scorpions then?
At the time, in terms of the region, it was Advocate Andrea Johnson, and the Deputy National Director in charge was Advocate Leonard McCarthy. But I reported directly to Advocate Andrea Johnson as head of office. I remained there till the doors closed 6 July 2009. However, in that time, on the 1st of April 2004, I became a Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions. And around about April or May of 2006, I became a Senior Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, which position I held up until the 28th of February 2022. And I then became the Investigating Director on the 1st of March 2022. In that time, I held various portfolios as a Deputy Director, overseeing prosecutions and investigations in the DSO. I was also at the DPP office and fell under what was called the organized crime component, where we dealt with organized crime matters. And from February 2019 till the end of February 2022, I was the National Coordinator Organized Crime at the NPA's head office.
Just the period when you were with the DSO, as you say, colloquially referred to as the Scorpions. Just discuss with us some of your experiences there and perhaps some of the more prominent matters or cases you became involved in as a prosecutor?
Honorable Chair and members, when the DSO started initially, it started with organized crime matters, and I think during the course of late 2003, what was then called ITSIO, which was the Investigating Directorate Serious Economic Offences, also came over to the DSO. So the DSO then ended up doing what the Hawks now do: serious organized crime, serious complex, serious commercial crime, serious corruption matters. And that became the ambit of the work that the DSO did. I was mainly involved in organized crime matters, but later on became involved in the serious corruption matters that were done at the DSO. There, much like what IDAC operates now, we had deputy directors who would lead a team, and the team would be comprised of advocates of various rankings, as well as criminal investigators. And we would form a team that would then deal with the matters that were allocated to us. I myself dealt with various matters, not just the corruption matters, but when it came to one of the more prominent matters, one of the matters that I dealt with together with Advocate Andrea was the investigation and prosecution of corruption allegations against the late Jackie Selebi, who at the time was the National Police Commissioner and the first African head of Interpol. And we saw that matter through to its finality. But in that time, Chair, the DSO was disbanded. And so in July 2009, as with most advocates, we were given an opportunity to choose which Director of Public Prosecution's office you would like to work in. Advocate Nell and I, who are Pretoria-based, chose the office of the DPP Pretoria, also because in October of that year, the matter for trial in the Selebi matter had been set down. And so practically it made sense that we would be in our home base and would be able to deal with the prosecution. And that prosecution was then finalized as it was with the guilty verdict being passed against the late Mr. Selebi, together with a term of imprisonment of 15 years. I've dealt over the years with other matters, and I wasn't married only to the corruption matters. We also dealt with some of the murder matters, conspiracies to commit murder, one of those being the matter of athlete Oscar Pistorius. Advocate Nell finished off or chose to leave the National Prosecuting Authority before that matter went back on appeal, and I finalized that matter, and we dealt with various matters over the years. So my experience in terms of matters was mainly organized crime and then into the corruption field.
Have you always been based in Pretoria? You were born in KZN, is it?
That is correct, Chair. My first prosecuting stint on the 1st of June 1996 was at the Magistrate's Court in Alberton. For purposes of correctness of the record, I did prosecute on a contract basis in Scottburgh in November, December 95, and January of 96, and then the contract finished, and then I applied to the then Department of Justice and waited for a position, which then became Alberton on the East Rand. I hadn't, other than those 2 or 3 months, prosecuted anywhere in KZN.
Just talk to us briefly about your formative years growing up in KZN.
Honorable Chair, I grew up in rural KZN. It's unfortunate that much of what I experienced then, some of our people still do experience now, which is the lack of running water and ablution facilities. That was the story of the growing up, walking to school at great distances on our rural roads. And there was a time when, fortunately, we were then able to catch a bus and travel great distance to school and back. My only friends at the time, and more so because my late dad was a policeman. In the apartheid era, us as black families were not allowed to be involved in politics, so there was no talk of politics. I had absolutely no political knowledge. I was not politically savvy at all. But we knew that as black people, we stayed together. So we were the only Indian family in that area, and then we had 3 African families, the Shomayos, Kiliza, the Keles, and those were our best friends. So I grew up playing with my friends, waited for one another when we came from school. I had a favorite meal at the time, which Mam Kiliza used to make, which was samp. I think called them nusho more now. The kids there had favorite meals at our home. We all also, unfortunately, had to walk to a communal area at the police station to collect water. And so myself and my friends would, with our tubs and buckets, get to the communal area, carry buckets and tubs of water on our heads, walk back down, fill up. So I had a very humble, rural upbringing. And those were my friends. That is how we grew up. Unfortunately, though, when we went to school, we went to different schools. But after hours, after school, on weekends, that was us, that was family. And that is how we socialized, and that is really my upbringing.
And you also became fluent in isiZulu?
Yes, sir, I did. And if you would allow me, Chair, I taught myself to read. And the one thing I had to read, everywhere I went, I saw a sign. And the sign said, Abahamba kulendlela bayoboshwa. And I needed to know what that meant, because coming or being brought up in rural KZN, there were many farmers, and as we walked those paths from school, that was a very prominent sign. I also had to learn Afrikaans because there was this thing with the dog that said, pas op vir die honde. So that was my first self-taught Zulu speaking and reading. But I'm fluent in Zulu because part of the respect was we taught, myself and my siblings taught my friends English, they taught us isiZulu, and that is how I grew up. Also had to learn Afrikaans, of course, because given what it was at the time, our schools were bilingual, and we had to know English and Afrikaans, because if you failed Afrikaans, you also failed the entire exam. Not just if you failed English, you failed the exam.
Yeah, I think that was the issue that gave rise to, or one of the issues was the language issue, the compulsory Afrikaans that you had to do, even as a black person. Anyway, so that was a political education, I suppose, on its own. But just fast forward, so you obviously had to move to the urban areas, go to high school or senior secondary school, go to university, and gain those degrees that you.
Correct, not as urban. I don't know if you call a little one-street village an urban area, but yes, I was able to go to high school in a different area, and I then attended the University of Durban-Westville as it was at the time for both my qualifications.
Thank you, Advocate Johnson. Now, just to go to IDEC more specifically, first established in 2019, and I think, as you pointed out, was created or established by a presidential proclamation, and that arose really from the findings and the recommendations of the Zondo Commission.
Correct, Chair. The Commission had commenced in 2018, and so that gave rise to the birth of the Investigating Directorate at the time. And
when it was still known as the Investigating Directorate, that was headed by Advocate Herman Cronje at the time.
Correct, Chair, up until I took office on the 1st of March, 2022.
So subsequent to 2019, your appointment in 2022, and the amendment to the NPA Act, the mandate changed. So just tell us briefly about that, the initial mandate of the Investigating Directorate and the mandate now of IDEC.
So the initial mandate of the investigating directorate dealt mainly with the commissions of inquiry, to with the party commission that looked into irregularities into the PIC, the Nugent Commission of Inquiry looking into alleged irregularities within the South African Revenue Service, and then the State Capture Commission, colloquially the Zondo Commission. In terms of IDAC, the mandate seeks to also then deal with serious and high-profile corruption matters, also over and beyond the statutory offences one is allowed to look at, POCTATARA, PRECA, PFMA, MFMA, POCA contraventions, and then the common law contraventions, fraud, theft, forgery, uttering, and offences that in the main relate to dishonesty, Chair.
And subsequently, the mandate broadened to corruption more generally.
That is correct.
And would you be dealing with more complex cases of corruption?
That is correct, Chair. We are expected to deal with the more complex corruption matters, but that also brings with it, if I may add, in terms of the POCA, which is the Prevention Organized Crime Act, there are also our money laundering obligations, and so IDAC played a very prominent role in ensuring complex investigations, also of money laundering towards the FATF and towards us dealing with the grey listing issues.
Do you only act on matters referred to you, IDAC, or do you have some authority or powers to, as it were, that Latin phrase, mero moto, on your own? Do you take on corruption matters just because you were told about it or read about it in the news, in the media,